All right, good morning or good afternoon, as the case may be. It is just about 12:01, uh, 11:01 by my watch in Chicago, so it's time to begin. Thank you for attending How to Modernize Your Query 400 Queries by Greg Schmidt of Help Systems. This PowerCast is sponsored by Help Systems. As always, my name is Ian Cartwright. I'm Education Manager for Common. And if you have any technical issues during the presentation, go ahead and send me a chat message. If you have a question about the presentation, the actual content for Greg, you can use the Q&A area. It's on the bottom of the screen right now and select to send to all panelists, and Greg will answer your questions at the end of the presentation as time permits. Greg Schmidt's a 20-plus year veteran in data, document forms, and process automation, specializing in document automation and business intelligence. Greg has helped hundreds of companies automate their data and document processes and streamline their cumbersome business processes through strategic technologies and planning. With that, I'm just going to hand control over to Greg. Greg, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Ian. I'm just going to take another second here just to personally welcome everyone to today's webinar. I'm glad you all could join, and I hope you find today's topic and information very helpful in your modernization journey of your BI solution. Again, my name is Greg Schmidt. I'll be the presenter for today's webinar, and the topic today is the modernizing of your Query 400 queries. This is a topic that in today's IBM BI world, and just the BI world itself, is a hot topic that I personally deal with on a daily basis, because we've been helping a lot of companies and customers really remove and create new strategies around how and who can access data inside of their organizations. So making users more self-sufficient and starting to remove some of the burden off of IT by providing IT tools to deploy usable and insightful data access strategies across their organizations. So today you're going to learn, and I'll start the process around the modernization process of your business intelligence solution, and starting to remove Query 400 if you're using it today, or if you're, building, CLs and RPG programs to do some of that process as well. And remember this, that there's one thing I'm going to show during the live demonstration is you always don't have to start from scratch. So when you're on that modernization journey, you already have all your SQL statements and all that stuff, that all that information can be imported directly into the system and reused in just a few seconds. And as you plan your strategic, operational, and tactical objectives for the last half of 2021 and the beginning of 2022, you need to start looking at replacing those outdated technologies like Query 400 and those other, I'll call manual, labor-intensive efforts to get the data to the business users via those custom programs, because they are, in most cases, a bear to maintain, and it really hinders you in the way you're doing business today and not being able to get the data to them quickly. So you can do business better if you just take some small steps forward on that modernization journey with us. And Ian's already introduced me, so I'm going to skip this, but really my background is in the data, document forms, and process automation and business intelligence realm. So anything around processes and automation capabilities, and we'll talk about some automation in the business intelligence world here today as well. Okay, so today's agenda, I'm going to start with a quick overview of how SQL BI can help you on that digital transformation of your data. So I have a few slides that we're going to talk about the digital transformation of data strategies. And then we'll move on to that main topic of how to modernize your Query 400 queries. In doing so, I'll be talking about some of the gaps that Query 400 has today. And then I'll be talking about some of the benefits and why you need to modernize and move away from custom programs and Query 400. And along with that, I'll be talking about how the SQL BI solution can help you on that modernization journey with our capabilities inside of the system. And then I'll be doing that live demonstration of the SQL Business Intelligence solution and how easy it is to access and deploy, and also import your existing Query 400 queries and make them promptable and deploy them via the web browser instead. So I'm going to go through that, and then we'll finish up with some Q&A at the end if there's any questions, and if time permits as well. And we should have plenty of time here today. I'm planning to complete this session hopefully a little bit earlier than the hour. So you have plenty of time to make that next important meeting or get up and stretch your legs a little before that next meeting. The sole purpose of SQL Business Intelligence is to get your organization's information structured and analyzable. SQL Business Intelligence enables your business in the strategic decision-making process, and it gives you the tools either for IT or the business users to access the data easily. Companies today need to be able to use the data that their business systems collect on a daily basis more efficiently. If that data lives native to the IBMI on a DB2 database, or as many organizations today may have a mixture of business platforms that are key to moving the business forward. And being able to take all that data, no matter where it lives, and use it to do deeper business analysis and tell stories with that data. SQL Business Intelligence, with SQL BI, we are helping IT and business users in organizations access and deploy their complex business data and turn it into actionable insights. We empower IT and business users by providing IT and tools to easily translate and deliver lots of data from different sources. So we'll talk about that here today, into clear and actionable stories with an easy to use interface that makes users more self-sufficient in accessing the data they need by removing the need to do time-consuming coding and building of the complex, sometimes complex data warehouses by IT. So we can actually go after the real-time data. Digital transformation of data. So this always comes up, a lot, right? Because this is a topic that's been around for a while, that digital transformation topic. But an overarching initiative for 2021 of most companies that falls under that digital transformation topic is being able to connect the business users together with the data they need in the format they need it to do, and doing it in a manner that is freeing up IT's time and making users more self-sufficient to what they need access to. And trust me, and sometimes that is not an easy task. That statement is not always an easy task, but getting to that is that journey process that we sort of walk you through with the technology. Business leaders are determined to keep up, and they have a lot to consider when seeking solutions to assist them in their digital transformation. These technologies can be utilized to modify or replace existing business process systems, and also and don't forget, not just business systems, but also the processes and culture and the customer experience to meet the changing business and market requirements that you're facing on a daily basis. In other words, every company's digital transformation is unique to its own existing process and structure and the business that they do. Business leaders can spend a lot of time digging through niche technologies designed for a certain vertical, but it's not always the best method. Niche solutions are typically require multiple vendors and haphazard integrations. Starting with a robust, familiar solution can help you streamline integrations and bring automation to that digital transformation strategy. Data is the center of your business, and business intelligence is the catalyst to your business that enables IT and business users to work and create and deploy views into your data that are easy to use and consumable by the audience it is being presented to. And that's a key word there, consumable, right? Because a lot of times when data is created, it's sometimes not consumable easily to the end user. Because data can be complex. So making that very easy to understand is a key part of the strategy going forward. Business intelligence can help companies make better decisions by showing not just historical data, but current data, right? Within the business context to either the business user or executives. This data, for instance, can show how trends in a business are changing from year to year and how you might want to upgrade staff or update staffing or change how your buying and spending habits are at certain times a year. Gartner predicted a few years back that digital transformation of data and the connecting of a business together with the data concept will change rapidly over the next few years. They said by 2022, 90% of corporate strategies will explicitly mention information as a critical asset, enterprise asset, and analytics as an essential competency. instead of a nice to have business application because of its power that it brings to the business to see what is going on in real time. And remember this, digital transformation is not a destination. It is a journey that can be accomplished strategically over time. You just don't, wake up the next morning and you're fully, underneath the digital transformation. It's something that can happen definitely over time. In a successful business intelligence solutions not only bring together users in the organization, but also all the key parts of the organization, like business systems and processes, and the business data that lives on all those systems that feed those processes and deliver it to the business users in a format they needed to do their job in. In terms adaptability in the BI world, right? So that's a key part of strategies is having a solution on any solution, right? Is having a solution that is adaptable to the business, right? So as the business changes over the years and the requirements change, the solution is adaptable. Maybe one time you need an Excel report, the next time you need a PDF report. Maybe it's a dashboard you want to give to someone, but you need to make sure that the system is adaptable to the ever-changing needs. And it might just be purely that the system needs to access different kinds of databases. So meaning that maybe it's a DB2 main structure, but some other billing systems and record systems that we need to go to, we can go out and grab that information. And a key one that we do here that I do a lot in the business intelligence world and in the document and forms management side is use BI in the terms of what we call content intelligence, meaning that we'll run reports that are connected to the document management system that we can then link to the data. So if they want to see supporting information or other reports or other drill down data, they have access to not only the data, but the documents that make up that process. But key is being adaptable and being able to connect to all your different, business systems inside the organization. Now, after you connect the business users in the organization with the data they need efficiently, here are some of the benefits that a BI solution can further bring to that organization, right? So the first important benefit is, like we're talking about, is accelerating that decision-making process. So being a business owner or at a managerial level, having a firm grip on the organization's data and where they are real time is important, so decisions can be made quickly and accurately and with that informed data. Optimizing internal business processes. A lot of companies find out, they go, geez, we need to put more automation there. There's a lot of manual things going on in our processes that are very time consuming. So optimizing that internal business process is something that is key. And I hear on a daily basis when we're working with customers and prospects is that they need to be able to do some of this stuff automatically. And I'll be showing some of that stuff in the live demonstration as well. But yeah, I mean, just increasing the operational efficiency, like freeing up IT's time, getting rid of those bottlenecks inside of that inside the organization, redefining inefficient business processes. Like I said, that is super super key to the process here as well. But also putting some automation to those daily tasks that people do over and over. It also helps start gaining competitive advantages, right? So, this is the one benefit a lot of companies today are wanting always to do a better job at, right? So being able to adjust their pricing faster, depending on industry and data that they have, reorder products and materials faster, depending on demands. So they can actually see, production, if you're looking at dashboards and stuff, they can see like production and how it's going and how it's scaling up or scaling down. So they can actually turn on the dime pretty quick, during that process. But then last of all is just spotting and addressing those business problems, right? So in companies, getting the data is not always that easy because sometimes you have to create. Today you're creating programs and queries that require extensive knowledge of database and layout. One of the things I want to show here today is how SQL BI, you really don't have to be in that programmer mentality to be able to access the data. So IT can do certain things to be able to help the users with certain things and do more of what we call template-based features, where the user doesn't have to have all that SQL knowledge wrapped up in their head. Now, before moving on, I just want to spend a few minutes to talk about some of the reasons why you might need to modernize, right? So it's not always all about IT and programmer resources that you might have in your company that might be depleting over the years or overtaxed, right? In some cases, it's about the technology you are using is outdated and cumbersome too. So just to break down some of those signs that change is needed is replacing outdated technology, right? It's just at its end, right at that point. And there might be limitations, and we'll talk more about that, right? And then, like I was talking about, a few times here today, is RPG code can be time-consuming and an inefficient way to do business, right? Because you have to modify those queries, you have to do certain things, and if that's not your cup of tea that you're used to, it's sometimes people struggle with that, right? The need for an easy-to-use interface. So as you bring in different resources, like I was talking about, you might have different levels of knowledge, about creating views over the business data. Not everyone is an SQL whiz, and having the right technology that caters to each level is very, very powerful. Again, going back to that adaptability phrase that I said earlier, the adaptability is huge in the inside of here to be able to adapt depending on who is creating those views and data structures. Easy to deploy and mobility, right? So that's one of the things too. So it's a lot of times it's, hey, we got to do this from a green screen, or we got to do this from this application. We don't get a lot of ease of deployment and a lot of flexibility on deployment and mobility. So being able to deploy via a web browser, or send an email to someone with a spreadsheet, or send a dashboard. That's some of the capabilities that we can set up with some scripting automation or just scheduling automation, and making that mobile, right? So web browser, any application or any device that has a web browser, we can then access the data from a dashboard standpoint or from a view standpoint. And then fast and flexible access. So being able to, the users need the data when they need it, right? They don't want to wait for it. So be able to have that fast and flexible access inside of there. Change can be challenging, and when an organization has been using, some of what we'll call non-modern methods for years, you need to have some compelling reasons to implement a new data access tool. But when your users' expectations, data volume sizes, and data access needs have all changed, it's time for the business intelligence tool to do the same. Modernizing modern data access tools such as like SQL BI can make it very easy to be able to access those different data sources and give direct access and secure access to the users. And also a big piece here you'll hear over and over is significantly saving IT's time if required in that case, right? So IT can deploy this, and they can do certain things inside of there, like building prompts and using the same views for different people, and just securing them differently. All right, let's move on here. So now let's go into a little deeper into this topic of getting more out of your data, right? So modernizing your Query 400 queries. With the fast-paced business world today, companies need to be able to basically turn on a dime, right? They need to be able to flip-flop and have adaptable solutions. And the effort that companies are putting towards their data and digital transformation efforts, those companies need solutions that can help them move their company forward. So it's a lot of those companies are running into bottlenecks, right? That they're not being able to get the data out and being able to see those insights to make those decisions, easier and faster at that point. So that's why the modernization topic comes up a lot today. And it sort of falls into, just the solution is falling, the other solutions are falling a little bit short, in what they do and what they offer. So the need to get more out of your data and easier ways to access it hits pretty much the top of the list for pretty much all the companies that we have talked to, in the past year or two, even at that point. Basically, you can divide your organization's data needs into these 4 columns. Being able to create powerful views with prompts and conditional logic without having to write code. And so you can do multiple passes over it. Having the flexibility so when requests change, business users don't have to wait days or weeks for that information. And then being able to provide accurate information from a centralized store of definitions. So you're eliminating the chance for human error. So most users are running the same reports over and over, during the week on the same data and tables. They just might slice and dice it a little bit different depending on like maybe customer numbers or order numbers or sales rep and stuff like that. So giving them those ways to be able to do that does help, the effort inside of there. And finally, security. Even if you rely on the IBMI for security setup, SQL BI will honor that security. So we can use the IBMI security for that. And you can also use one of our other layers of security all the way down to field level and row level security functions. So we can get pretty granular with those security functions inside the system. Now, moving into more of the Query 400 conversation. So, for 30 plus years, many IBMI shops have defaulted to using Query 400, to access their data and fulfilling the basic need to generate simple reports from the DB2 data. Again, in today's fast-paced world of data transformation, more and more organizations are finding that Query 400 can't keep up with that requirement around data reporting and analytics, especially around some of these areas. So interface, not user-friendly, incompatible with Microsoft Excel, or not easy to use with Microsoft Excel. And Microsoft Excel is one of the most common interfaces for business users today that they're familiar with. So being able to facilitate very easy, coordination with Microsoft Excel formats is key. Compound queries are not scalable, and data integrity is at risk. Now let's go into each of these just a little bit deeper here, starting with the user interface. User interface is not user-friendly. Let's face it, IBMI is a very, very powerful business system, but green screens are not pretty to look at sometimes and not always easy to use and understand. There are many reasons why you may need to modernize your process. And another is, let's face it, the younger generations. Have you ever seen the fear and confusion in someone's eyes when you first show them a green screen? I know when I see my first green screen, I was like, wow, their minds just scream old system. Is this that DOS thing? A lot of people say, right? Depending on that generation, but without realizing how capable the IBMI really is for running a business. Is this powerful system to be able to do that. The younger generation or not, new hires are likely to be in that younger category, right? Or in a certain category and may never have had experience or ever seen a green screen application in their lives. So in order to take on that challenge for your organization, they will need an easy to use modern interface that will allow them to access the data quickly without the need to know SQL query language or green screens. One last reason is the speed of business today. You snooze, you lose. Is having a bigger meeting in business today. Keeping ahead of the competition and keeping up with current regulations and expanding into new and growing markets and more means your decision makers need information when they need it fast. Today, IT has plenty of demands and restraints put on them already. So being able to create a business strategy to give IT the tools to make users more self-sufficient on how and when they can access the data is key. The next thing to look at is how we work, or how it works, or more importantly, how it doesn't work with Microsoft Excel. Over the years, Microsoft Excel has become a must-have application for business users who need to manipulate and analyze data in the way that they're comfortable with. Getting data out of the IBMI and into Excel using Query 400 is not impossible, but it does require multiple steps that too many organizations today have become to accept as a necessary evil. In reality, this process is inefficient and time-consuming for IT, and it can delay business users in getting the data or timely data that they need to make informed and quick business decisions. Some business users will try to take a shortcut, transposing, the manual and doing manual data entry into a spreadsheet themselves. This is not only inefficient, this workaround also introduces the risk for human error and could compromise the data integrity. The next is around scalability. Query 400 and compound queries might, start out of the box, start to box you into a corner and become more unscalable. Query 400 can only search a single partition at a time on a local database. That means someone in IT needs to create multiple queries and run them manually to report and distribute the data. Not only inefficient, this model is just not scalable. With Query 400 limitations of only one query at a time, and time someone needs a slightly different data set, right? So if someone needs a different data set, you need to modify and run a new query every single time. Let's say, for example, Lisa in finance wants to make like a trial balance from a column of credits and debits she has and wants to make them into two columns. Query 400 makes it very difficult to split the data in one pass due to its limitations with query and logical or in conditional logic. Even things like converting a character field or a numeric one, or converting to dates, conditional logic, concatenating, and other familiar and frequent used functions, each require their own step and their own query to be able to run and refresh the data. So you need to run each individual query in the correct order to get the result that you're looking for each time. So for that one-off data pull, it's not ideal. For a set of data that gets pulled regularly, it's simply unsustainable. In that process. Using a tool that provides more advanced BI functions in fewer steps is a huge time saver. Plus, these tools can shield users from the complexity of the query because they really don't care what the query is. They just want the data to be able to do what they want. So being able to use the engines better to be able to process that is key to the process. All right, here. And last of all is the data integrity is potentially at risk. So runtime prompts allow users users to input the variables they need to run the queries without touching the underlying code. There are no runtime prompts in Query 400. So when business users need to change their data sets to analyze different results, it requires a modification to the code of the query. Let's say Cindy in accounting, for instance, needs to search for a certain customer account. Sometimes she does this dozens of times each day. With Query 400, IT has two options: elevate Cindy's security privileges so that she can modify the query on her own, or manually go to the into the query, enter the exact account number, and rerun the query every time she needs to refresh the data. Without runtime prompts, Query 400 ultimately interferes with the organization's ability to get business done efficiently. All right, let's move into here. So again, change can be challenging. Switching business intelligence tools shouldn't always mean losing all the work that you have put into, writing your queries over the years. So like I was talking about in the beginning. So if I told you that, this is one of the things that I start out inside of demonstrations with sometimes. So if I told you that we could take your Query 400 queries that you have built and import them in a few seconds, do I have your attention? Right, kind of a feel, right? So you don't have to rebuild those. So it is possible with SQL BI. So being able to, copy, SQL code in there or SQL statements in there, or just directly going after the query and importing them into the system, you have that capability. You can also use SQL BI to perform data manipulation reporting tasks far beyond the abilities of Query 400. I'll be showing more of this in the live demonstration here in just a minute. But flat out, your company needs to access the data to be more competitive in today's fast-paced, ever-changing world of business today. Now, just quickly back to importing of the existing queries. There are two methods that we actually have inside our solution for you to be able to import queries. The first option, we do have an IBMI command line option that you can do it. Today, I'm going to be showing the GUI method from what we call our Viewpoint Designer to be able to bring those in. But as expected, the green screen methods is sometimes preferred, depending on the who it is doing that, and what their expertise is. But there's a really easy way inside the visual designer as well to be able to bring those in. So depending on the skill sets that each individual have. All right, just really quickly here, I just want to walk through sort of our concept around SQL itself, and then I'm going to get into that live demonstration and get going here for you. But SQL BI is really built with DB2 in mind, but it also allows you to work with other business systems that may not live on the IBMI system, right? Like Oracle, MySQL, Microsoft SQL Server, any other type for JDBC driver compatible database. With SQL BI, we really use a three-step methodology of collect and discover live data from your organization's business systems. So that collect and discover phase, understand and design around the data that you were collecting. So you can access that real-time data if you need to in most cases, and also historical data. And this can be done with data-centric views or in a more graphical manner with graphs and charts to show the data stories. So they're easier to consume by the user. So it's really how the user wants to see it, right? Do they want to see a graph or chart and then drill down into it, or what they want to do from that aspect? And then you can share and deploy to your business users using a web browser interface for zero application footprint via the web browser. So you can deploy those dashboards and views and stuff via there. Or we have direct access through Microsoft Excel, where you can open up your queries and stuff through the Excel plugin. And just to reiterate this one more time, I always like to push this home. Even though SQL BI is built with that DB2 in mind, remember, it can connect to other business systems to be able to tell that story. So that whole, whole data story across your entire network that you might need to pull in and have different, views into those data is key to most of our customers and prospects today. And something that I've been talking about, during the presentation here is very important, is don't fear the data. Right? So no matter what level of SQL skills you're at, or you might not even know what SQL is, but you can still access your data and use it efficiently. Let the technology do the work for you. So we can help you from every level: expert level, medium level, beginner level, or that level with no SQL at all. Right? So those the level with no SQL at all does require a little bit of touches from IT. But IT can get them on a right path very quickly at that point, with minimal, effort at that point. So our easy to use interfaces allow you to get that data easily and tell the stories with the data. And later in the presentation here, I'm going to be walking through that as well. With SQL, you get more than just, the queries, more options for deployment, right? So the big things here, you have dashboard capability. So I'm going to be showing a couple of these here today. So I'm going to be showing the Viewpoint Explorer Designer. I'm going to be showing the Microsoft Excel plugins, and I'll be showing the SQL Web Interface, and I'll be showing some of the dashboard capabilities. But these are all sort of the different deployment methods that you can do. These two right here, the SQL Web Interface and the Microsoft Excel plugin, are the two hot ones right now, because everybody wants to be able to get to that data quickly through Excel, or just open a web browser and get to it. All right, now to the fun part. So I'm going to get into the live demonstration here. In the live demonstration, I'm going to go through, importing the queries, how we can, easily access those queries to the web browser, and then show how you can add prompts. I'll talk about Excel options, the different ways that we can access Excel, design modes. And then if time permits, I'll get into dashboards and then building one from scratch as well. All right, let me switch back here. All right, let me open up my SQL Viewpoint. So with SQL Viewpoint, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open up and get access to my temp library out there. But what I want to do is I want to create, I'm going to go into my file and then do import, and I'm going to query definitions. So I'm going to go out there and I'm going to search for my query definitions. And I'm going to access my existing queries that I have out there, right? So importing these existing queries is as simple as clicking on them and saying, you know what, I want this one, or I want this one and this one, and then hitting the import option. So as soon as I hit this import option, you'll see what it does is it'll import them, and it's going to throw them into this Greg temp library, right? So think about from a deployment standpoint, I always like stage them in certain areas, but this is how you would give access to those different options there, right? So inside of here, now these are available right away. So I can right click and display results inside of here if I want to work on it, or via the web browser, via the SQL web interface, I can actually deploy so once they're converted and inside the system, I can access them directly as well. So I can actually, I'm just going to refresh my screen here, and it should have those three inside of my Greg temp folder there. And then it gives me the capability to be able to access them with the actions button here if I want. So I can display and do different things with it here, or just double click on them. And I can double click on it. And what's going to do, it's going to open that view up inside of the web browser. So very easy to just import and deploy via the web browser, and then pull the data back to the screen. You'll see it actually opened a tab here, so you have that capability to be able to grab that information. Now this information here, there's a lot of different things. We'll talk about some Excel functions, but you can save the results out, download them as different formats. A lot of times people need to create charts and graphs. They might say, hey, I need to create a chart and graph over this data. They can come in here and actually do like a 3D column chart or a pie chart or whatever they need to. Very quick and easy using that live data at that point. So very easy to do that. Now, from a design standpoint, if I need to change things, right? So what if I need to modify something, right? All I have to do is right click and do design in here. And what's going to happen, it's going to open up the designer functionality. And there's a couple different, like I said, layers to design, right? I'm one that I'm a very visual person. I don't like SQL code. I understand it. I know how to do it. It's just not as easy. Some people really love this and never actually go anywhere else. They just come in here and update the SQL code or copy and paste some SQL in here, right? So you do have that capability there. I like what we call the files and fields option. The files and fields option gives me that visual view and shows me like all the joins and everything that's in that SQL statement in a visual manner. So I can actually see that and go, oh yeah, you got joins inside of here, that auto joined and stuff inside of here, between these three tables, it's between the different tables here. So you can actually go into these and actually see that information. Now, if I want to build a prompt inside of here, instead of running this and actually showing me all the data, really cool piece of this is saying, hey, maybe I want to just build a quick prompt in here. And I want to put a prompt in here, and let me put this in here. Equals ampersand no. So I'm going to put that really quick little statement in there really quick. And there's a couple different ways you can do this too. That's not the only way that you have to do it. You can actually do it through our expression editor as well. But now when I'm going to close that so you can see this. But now when I run that through the browser, right? And it pulls that open, it's going to prompt me for information. So this is really useful because you might have different reps or different individuals that might need to get to different parts of different pieces of data. So they can come in here and say, hey, I need to look for 100-600, customer number 100-600, and give me the data back for that one. So it might be a smaller set of data. So now you can do that. And then they might want to reprompt on that and say, you know what, I need to do 100, 112, and then prompt on that and get that information. So this allows them to get that information and work with those different subsets of data very quickly. And again, without IT's time at that point. So we don't need to get IT involved at that point. It's a very, very powerful piece of the application. to be able to deploy that and be able to access that. Now so that's more of the prompt options, right? And being able to design and stuff like that. And let me open the design function back up because I want to show you a couple other options here too. So from a design standpoint, like I was talking about, you can do the SQL option, you can do the files and field option, which is more of that layout kind of structure, and gives you the capability to be able to add different databases in there too. So I can say, hey, what's my database file? Go search for it. And then take those fields and say, hey, I need to take these fields and I want this field to be down here too in my export. It's simply just dragging those and dropping those down as your different columns inside of here. And there's some fine tuning that you can do and sorting and some really cool fun stuff inside of there. And, and create variables and stuff in there. So you do have that capability, but there's also that view builder function. So if you got someone that's sort of in between, this is more of a tabular, I'll call it wizard-like kind of feel, where it says, hey, what's your data source? Select from your data sources, select your file that you want, select your fields, select your filters, select your sorts, select your variables. So you can do all that kind of structure inside of here through more of an easier to use method at that point as well. So that's another option. And if you're creating from new or scratch, one really cool feature is, so when I create a new view inside of here, say that I create a brand new view, we can actually have it prompt you and say, hey, I want to use this open orders template. And the open orders template, what this does, it gives you the capability and users to, so I don't need to know the database, right? I'm just looking at the field names. I just say, hey, I want customer name, I want customer number, I want, sure, I want the state as well, and I want the order numbers, and that's what I want, right? So then you can say finish, and I want to say display my results, and that could be, a way for them to get to, users to be able to work with the data without having to know database information. As long as they know the field names and the values they need, from the top level, they can then access that information and and get that information to themselves. So that is another way to be able to process that. And just remember, I'm going to finish up here with some questions here too, but just remember from the standpoint of, so these are the different kinds of deployment methods, right? So we can do the Viewpoint client. It is the web browser enabled, but remember the key part to this sometimes is dashboards, visual dashboards, to be able to represent the data so it's easy to consume, at the high level, but then they can also drill into the data if they need to. So they can also drill down and prompt into this information with planned or application drill downs. So you can drive someone into data if they need to, from a data set standpoint, or like this one here, if I have a user that has more knowledge, or what I'll call power user, right? They want to regroup and do stuff themselves. You can give them these regroup and show details options. And you might have executives or some users that you just want to give them two options. Then you can do, hey, who purchased this item? What else did they purchase, right? So you can create these different drill downs that are planned and go to a specific data set at that point if need be. But being able to have the capability to be able to deploy through the web browser and dashboards in Excel is key in that process. Now, like I was showing here, Excel output is basically a click of a button inside of here for us, right? So saving the results and downloading them as a PDF or an Excel document or Word document or text information is all right through the application menu. So if they want to pull that down, they can do that. They can also right click. If you want to schedule an automation task, you can right click and say email, and then let's see, 100. Actually, let me cancel this one. You can right click and say email, and then put the information in there, and then you can schedule that as well. So with the IBM i Job Scheduler, or if you're using our robot schedule, you can do that through here as well. So you have a couple different options in that case. Now the last piece here, then I'm gonna we'll get into some questions here, is the capability into the Excel functions, right? So being able to create a new or open up data from that. So being able to use those views, maybe not in the web browser, but through the application here. So I can come here and add a view and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go in and add Greg Temp. I'm going to browse Greg Temp, and I'm going to grab that sales one here, open that up, and say, okay. What that's going to do, it should prompt me, because I built that prompt in there. And you'll see that I can actually import that data directly into Excel and manipulate that into Excel and use this as real time to refresh the data. So as the data refreshes, this might be something I want up on my screen. I can hit the refresh button and refresh the data, and then create different tabs with different views into that. Or like I was showing up here before, you could even create dashboards inside of Excel, off of the different data elements that you might be pulling in. So you might be, creating these different data elements. So it's just really depending on where the user wants that information and how they want to access it, during their work days. Now there is a lot to, so SQL BI is very easy to use, user-friendly, very quick to install. Some of the things that I always like to bring this up because I think it's a huge plus. But very knowledgeable support staff, right? But also, so when we're doing trials and stuff like that with you and in doing installs, we can help you with that process. But one of the other things that I always like to highlight is educational services, right? That we do offer. So we do offer, online classes, on-demand online classes, one-on-one mentoring, mentorships and stuff like that, and small group and consulting services. So we do have a pretty extensive, services on our side to be able to help you, in that journey, depending on what you need to know and how you need to do it. So, I mean, there's all different kinds of classes from the basic, basic to intermediate to mastering capabilities, right? So, throughout the process. And some of this is catered to the individual, right? Because you might say, hey, I need to spend more time on dashboards or do more of this, kind of a function. And we do have some new classes, new Viewpoint class that we're doing. So if there's any Viewpoint customers on the line here today, mastering drill down applications is huge. And we built a whole course around that to be able to offer some training around that. All right, I am going to open it up for any questions. If there is any, I'm not sure if there is any questions, Ian, or.
I don't have any questions right now, but we will give folks a couple seconds to send them in. Just send them in through Q&A right now if you have questions for Greg. While we're waiting for that, I will point out that the handout from today, as well as a replay of this webcast, will be available probably from tomorrow morning on the Common Learning Management System. Essentially, I'll just send out an email to everybody once that's available, and we usually are able to turn that around in 12 hours. So it should be tomorrow morning when that's available. Any questions, anybody?
No questions means I must have answered
Explained
everybody's
everything
question
perfectly. Yeah. All
right, everybody's scared.
Yeah, seeing none, let's just go ahead and end a couple minutes early then. Greg, thank you for a great presentation.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
All right, everybody have a
Thanks,
good day.
Ian.